So, as we look at what's on the test, we have our first couple of standards, and then, so as we take a look at what else is on this interpreting, by looking at the table, finding the minimum and maximum. Other thing I'm going to ask you to find is, what is your vertex of a quadratic, right? So you might be looking at an equation, right? So knowing that vertex form of your equation. I'm going to ask you to look at the discriminant. What is the discriminant? It is the b squared minus 4ac. And I'm going to say, when you take a look at this discriminant, how do you know if you have one solution, no solution, or two solutions? And the key thing is what? If it equals 0, we have 1. If it is greater than 0, we have 2 solutions. And if it is negative, less than 0, we have no solution, right? So looking at that discriminant. And then I'm going to ask you, like I did today when we looked at the starting of your I-13, tell me about the shape of the graph. Does the graph go up or down for a graph? So those are all the type of things that I'm going to ask you on interpreting, okay? So when you look at those equations, maybe when you see a graph, taking a look of what you're going to know as you look at that. And then the last standard that we have not looked at is what your quiz is on today, is I can solve quadratic. There will be 6 questions, total of 24 minutes. This will be where I'm looking at, you can use x squared equals that positive number. So you would have 2 solutions, x equals the positive and negative square root. On the last quiz, many of you didn't get both of those, yeah? Nope, I just say solve whichever method you like. Same on the quiz today. So if I get x squared, I'm going to do, that's going to be the easiest, right? I can get a decimal. X squared equals 25, x equals positive and negative 5. X squared minus 40 equals 0. If I have x squared minus 40 equals 0, that means x squared equals 40. That means x is equal to positive and negative. I'm going to round it and get square root of 40. Okay? If I don't take the square roots, the next thing I'm going to try to do is to factor. And I'm only usually going to do that when my lead coefficient is a nice number. So I might do it factoring when my x squared is 1, or if I can multiply, going back to the last unit, when I multiply the a times the c in that equation, and I get that number, and then I said, oh, how does it add to the middle, right? So that might be one thing that I'm thinking about when I'm trying to solve. I am most likely not doing completing the square, right? Completing the square takes too much time, and it would be much easier to just use the quadratic formula. You guys remember the song? You want to sing it? No. Not really? No. So, today on the quiz, when you look at the quiz, it's going to be one of these 3 ways that you are going to be looking at solving. There are 4 questions on the quiz today, okay, that you are going to be taking. You should solve it one of these ways. Key thing is, if x squared is not equal to a positive number, that means you don't have any roots, right? That meant that your equation was a parabola going up above the x-axis, or it was a parabola that went down below the x-axis, and you have no roots, you have no solution, right? So remember, there's always that possibility on the test and on the quiz that you could have no solution, okay? If you think, I'm going to try factoring, and factoring doesn't work for you, you think, yeah, I should be able to do this, because the last number is a nice number, it's like 3, and the middle number is something like 2, but it doesn't work out to give you, because it says positive 3 and 2, which would mean you'd have to have -3 and a 1, and it doesn't work, then you're going to probably use the quadratic formula. So if the numbers don't work, don't sit there and go, oh, I know I should factor this. I know I can do this. So you might not be able to factor it. Use the quadratic equation. Remember when you use, or the quadratic formula, remember when you use that, it is key that your equation is equal to 0. And it is ax squared plus bx plus c. And what you're doing is putting this equal to 0. You need to make sure when you put that in, some of the mistakes that some of you made when you did the quadratic formula, is you put in a in place of b, right? Yeah. Oh, I just thought that was, so it might be my hint. So like actually write out a equals b equals c. Do you have to? No. But if that's going to help you, right? The other thing is when you do that on your test and on the quiz today, I would make sure that you write it and you put that, when you're writing the formula, that you put in all your numbers. So write it this way with the plus minus, put your square root, the discriminant, the b squared minus 4ac. Put all of this, now you don't have to write it with the variables, but make sure I see it with your numbers, and then maybe you get, oh, x is equal to whatever number you had here, and you go plus or minus, and put that square root. If this square root is negative, right, no solution, right? If underneath here, the b squared minus 4ac is negative, you can't solve it, right? So, because that's telling us, giving us an imaginary number, okay? So looking at, someone said they had a question on number 3. Yes, we want to look at 3 from last night's homework. So I'm going to be coming around when you're taking this quiz and just checking your homework. I'm checking you through 13 that you had this done. So when you take a look at 13, first thing I want to look at is if I am finding my vertex. So I'm going to take -2 divided by 2 times the negative. 2 is my A. I'm going to have 2 over -4, or 2 over 4. So I have my axis of symmetry, and I know that my vertex is going to be at a half. So if we are looking at that, like on the test, I asked you to show me that axis of symmetry as we are taking a look at that one. The next thing we want to take a look at is that we want to find our y coordinate. So when you plug in -2, it's going to be 0.5 squared. Please take out your calculators and put this in if you haven't. Plus 2 times 0.5 minus 1. So you should have -2 plus, it is going to come out negative, right? Negative what? Negative 0.5. So we have 0.5, negative 0.5. If I asked you to solve this, would this have had any solutions? No. No, because my parabola is going down, right? So my parabola went down, it's here. When I go to make my table of values, I'm going to put 0.5, which gave me negative 0.5. And then I'm going to probably go with 0 and -1, and I would go with 1 and 2. When I plug in 0, that's the easiest one, right? 0 gives me -1. So at -1, I can see it's going down, and now I'm going to plug in -1, and at -1, it came out to be what, like down at -4? I plug in -1 in there, someone want to plug that in? I think -4, let's talk about that. Because it's kind of narrower, right, than, so if I'm looking at those two, we have 1 and 2, something like that. Okay? Questions? Yeah.
Could you just call it 0.5 the entire thing, right? Like -0.5, 0.5, 1, 1.5, instead of doing the 1.
Talk about on the test, looking at that question. And if you turn, if you don't need to look at your textbook right now, but this is, first off on that page before you begin, so you are assigned to do 1 to 45 odd to page 603. This is the page before that talks about the big ideas for the unit. talks about functions, how do you prove axis of symmetry, how do you solve it. We have not done this modeling, that's in our last unit that we're gonna do, so you don't have this, and you did not have systems. So we just pretty much went up through 9.6. We did not do systems that are in 9.7 and 9.8, that's in our next unit that we come up with, okay? So as you're going through these, like all the vocabulary, if there are ones from these last two, we're gonna be getting that coming up. But as you are looking at the homework questions, you're doing the odds, so just make sure as you go through, if you have questions, that you're taking a look. Also make sure that you are keeping up with your final review packet.